Hello and welcome back for some more freshly brewed drag tea. Today I have a very special guest who appeared on the Season 12 Superfans Makeover Challenge where she was paired with Crystal Methyd. On the show we fell in love with her gentle and kind spirit, and she overcame her anxiety and served us some stunning troll doll realness on the runway. We'll be discussing everything Drag Race, her time on the show, spilling some backstage tea, and I'll of course be asking all of the amazing questions you all sent in. So please join me in welcoming Grace Boll AKA Opal Methyd.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing wonderfully.
Great.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you for asking. Thank you so much for agreeing to obviously be on my channel and be interviewed. I know people were very excited to hear from you. I obviously loved you on the episode, and I love Crystal as well, so it's just so great to be able to speak to you.
Oh, thank you. It's still a weird feeling why you don't want to talk to me. It's just weird.
Yeah, I can imagine it must feel weird being almost like a quasi celebrity within the Drag Race world, at least.
It was. I went with Bethany Jazz Essence Hall to DragCon a couple weeks ago, and it was just so delightful. But there was definitely I think people are staring at us. And then Crystal ended up giving me the dress from the show at DragCon, so I was wearing it. And then this wonderful person made me a bag with us as Opal and Crystal Methyd, and so I think that helped quite a bit to let people know who I was, especially if I was standing, near Crystal. That was helpful. But we were in line waiting for Michelle Visage, and we were talking about okay, we're going to go here and then here. And the guy in front of us was kind of giggling at our plan. And I was like, oh, I'm just a planner. That's what I do. And he goes, oh, I know who you are. But he ended up being Anthony, who was Angeria's designer. So that was kismet. And then he took us over to meet Angeria, which we were freaking out. And she was freaking out. And it's weird to have people that we freak out about meeting us. So that was it's still weird. It's I don't think I'll ever get used to it. So
yeah, it must be weird. And I guess it's sort of a full circle moment that you were a fan of the show, you were on the show, and then you've kind of almost become part of the show that you originally loved in the first place. It's kind of I can imagine it's a weird sort of full circle thing.
It's the cool. I joke. I'm I've peaked. It's all downhill from here. As a joke, of course, but it was.
Yeah, let's hope not.
It's the coolest thing I've ever done so far.
Yeah,
I just wanted to meet RuPaul. That's all I wanted.
Yeah, that is amazing. I mean, not many people can say that. Not many people can say they've actually been part of the show, especially as a guest as well. So talking about sort of that element of it, how did you get involved with the show, and also how long had you watched the show for, and how long had you been a fan for before being on it?
So getting involved was, I follow, World of Wonder and all of the shows on Instagram. And there was a casting or hey, Drag Race superfans want to do something cool. And you had to submit 2 pictures and a 1-minute video about why you should be picked. And I have a spectacular friend, Natalie, who does makeup, and she actually turned me into Violet Chachki's demon look. Hold on, I'll find it. Well, I help her out every Halloween, and she turns me into things to promote her channel, or her not channel, Instagram me thing. I'm so bad at all of this that I don't know what any of it's called. But she we were supposed to do Poison Ivy, and then I asked, hey, there's this thing I want to try out for. Can you turn me into a drag queen? And I sent her Violet Chachki's demon look, Detox's black and white look, and I forget what the third one was. And she was like, no, I have to do the Violet Chachki look. And then my phone's about to, so she turned me.
The when she came to the season 8 premiere final, the finale. Yeah, crowning.
She made this out of hot glue, which I still can't get over.
That is an amazing. That's such a good. Like, I almost couldn't. I thought that was 2 pictures of Violet at first. I was like, wait, why are you showing me that? And then I realized that's you on the other side.
Yeah, and so I did my whole minute video in the makeup, and then had a picture from DragCon, and they emailed me like that afternoon being like, do you want to do a Skype or we want to do Skype, which I still can't believe Skype dropped the ball on all of this. Like, it's all Zoom now, and Skype is just like, oh, well. But we did the interview, and I hadn't heard from them in a while, and it was like, okay, like, this is probably for something really cool, and when you see it on the show, it's okay that you didn't get it, it's okay. And then literally that night, they were like, congratulations. And it was like... and then your second question, I started watching season 1. I was flipping through the channels and was like, what is this? And I had a special meeting, my dear friend Victor, who is gay, just a cute little petite little pocket gay. It was his 23rd birthday, and he wanted to go to this place, I'm originally from Denver, called Boys Town, for his 23rd birthday, and no one else wanted to go with him. And I was like, I'll go, like, let's go. So I took him, and the bouncer was a drag queen and was stunning, like more beautiful than I think I have ever been in my entire life. And I paid $20 for him to get to pick the dancer of his choice and go up on stage. And then I sat at the bar just talking to the bouncer, drag queen, and was like, this is magic. You're magic. This is the best thing ever. And then when I found the show, just randomly, I was like, oh, that's RuPaul. I know who RuPaul is. And then I started watching it, and I was like, yeah, this is everything. And then also it helped that Nina Flowers was from Denver. So it gave me an immediate kind of like, oh, like, I know her. She's from Tracks. I've seen her. Like, I know who that is. And so then it was instant, like, I have to watch every single. The only episode I didn't watch, or the only season I didn't watch, like I've obviously seen it in reruns, but the only one I didn't watch when it was on was season 4. I don't know what was happening in my life that season 4 just kind of came and went, and I missed it. But other than that, I've seen every season, and and I think part of what got on the interview was. I rewatched it because that same friend had called me to produce a drag show at his wedding, or run a drag show. I say produce because it sounds better. And so just like a week after is when I saw the thing for the casting call, and I almost didn't do it. I was talking to my best friend Brian, who was like, who is obsessed with the show as well. And I was like, I don't know, I never did anything like that. And he was like, Grace, just do it. Come on. And I'll be indebted to him for many other reasons, but that's a big one.
That's a lovely story, and that's so nice that you've been a fan from literally the start, from season 1. And we're all very glad that you did apply and get on, because you were so lovely on the show, and you were so sweet, and
thank you.
You were sort of definitely, you and Crystal definitely were, I think, were a really good pairing, because you both just had that very warm, slightly nervous, anxious, a little bit alternative and like nerdy. That's kind of, do you know what I mean? But not really nerdy, but kind of that sort of vibe.
Oh, very nerdy. I'm very proudly a nerd.
Well, no, there's no problem with it, is there? And so, obviously on the show, the way they portrayed it and what we saw was that you were all backstage, and they said you had no idea that you were told you were going to be in the audience, and then you walk into the workroom and realize you're going to be actually on the show. Is that what really happened, or did you realize what was going to happen? Okay,
so myself personally and Brian both had, because we talk every day, we had an idea because we were scheduled for 2 days. We had to be free for 2 days, and there's no audience thing that's going to be 2 days. And so I had a sneaking suspicion it might be or I was hoping it might be the makeover episode. And when we showed up in the parking lot, I was like, there's only 6 of us. Well, technically there were 7. I feel terrible. They had an alternate just in case one of us was like, no, thank you. And she had driven all the way from Las Vegas. So I felt terrible that she had to drive all the way back, which we saw her at DragCon. She's just delightful. But then they took us into the kind of waiting room and they said they were all waiting for this audience thing. And I was like, I don't think so, because you told us to dress up and all of these people look like they're in like sweatpants and that guy doesn't look happy to be here. And I know that anyone who like signed up for this would be like thrilled to be here. So I was kind of feeling like maybe I was wrong, but then they just called the 6 of us and I was like, okay, still just 6 of us. They're like, we're going to go show you the workroom. And when we entered the first time and saw Ru and the queens, we were silent because we were just like, oh. And I also didn't want to scream because I was afraid they'd kick me off. And so we the director, who is this just fantastic woman, comes up and she's like, that was terrible. Go outside. We need to do it again. And so we walked outside of the workroom and we all started screaming because we were like, holy oh, sorry. Oh my goodness, like this is the coolest thing ever. And the director came out and she's like, all of this do out there. And we're like, oh, okay. So the footage that you see is actually our 3rd time. Like you'll see me, I come like hopping, because I was the last in line. I come like hopping into the workroom. Bethany did a great job of like pretending that we didn't know what was going on. But and then I, immediately was like, I knew it. Which if you're a true drag fan, you should have some idea of what's going on. But it was what the thing I didn't have any idea about was the lip sync for your life. That was news, and I was the only one who was excited because like I lip sync in my mirror all the time. So I was like, oh my god, this is like now I have to do it in front of RuPaul. This is great.
That's really interesting to hear that. I don't think no one else sort of they'd mentioned that you came in, you sort of, some people realized, some people didn't, like, because obviously if you're a fan of the show, but I didn't realize that it was the reaction that we saw was actually your 3rd reaction. So you all did a very good job because it seemed very genuine.
I mean, we were still it was still, a genuine reaction because, we were so excited. We just had to like do it that in a way that they could get off.
You could tell it was genuine, but it was funny that I guess it's expected in TV you do things multiple times, but it's funny to hear that basically you were all so scared and nervous that you actually didn't say anything the first time, and they were like, well, you've got to be a bit more excited.
We need you to not look like you're scared. Please pretend you're excited. Like and all of us were like, we didn't want to say anything because we were worried to like get kicked off. Like we didn't want to freak out because we didn't want to get kicked off. At least that was mainly mine.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And so then obviously when you did walk in, obviously the 3rd time, you saw RuPaul and you were standing there and you saw the queens, you realized it was the makeover challenge. When you then got paired with Crystal, what were your first impressions of her?
Well, I didn't know any of the queens right off the bat. Shay knew Gigi, so she had a whole plan of if she got paired with anybody but Gigi, she was gonna ask if she could switch. So Jada was like spot on with every pairing. But we talked and there were moments where I was like, oh my gosh, she's as anxious as I am. And so I've been, dealing with anxiety for my whole life. So I was like trying to make her, because she kind of looked nervous when everyone else was talking about their makeovers. And I was like, whatever you have planned is going to be great. And she's like, are you reading my mind? And we were like doodly, like we clicked right away. So I was very, very lucky to be with her.
Yeah, you definitely seemed very sweet and a very great match and everything. And I think you both had that same kind of energy and that was really cool to see. And so obviously then you have a bit of interaction, you start talking to Crystal a bit more. And did you have any idea of what Crystal's plan was in terms of what the actual makeup and the outfits were going to look like?
She definitely. So I had made a. You know how you talk to the TV while you're watching the episodes, and I was just like, if I ever made it on an episode, I'd let them do whatever they wanted. Like, it's their thing. It's not your thing. It's their thing. They have to like. And so she mentioned Bert and Ernie, but I had no idea. No idea. And to be honest, I was a little nervous they were going to hate it because it was so out of the box. And we looked like siblings, but the whole marriage thing, which was fine. I was just like, I hope they get the sibling. I hope they think we look alike. Like, I just wanted to do really well. Like, I hope they like it. And so, like, you can kind of tell when I've rewatched it, like when Ross says, what the F is this? I actually was like, no, please don't hate it. Like, I love it. Please don't hate it. And then when he says, I love it, I was like, oh, okay, we're good. Excellent. Oh, and we might win. And then, so I was just a little nervous, but when I first saw myself, I was a little taken aback, but then I was like, no, you love the artsy queens. You got paired with an artsy queen. This is the coolest thing ever. Don't mess this up for her. And then when we got on stage, I was like, I hope they love it as much as I do. Like, please don't hate it. Because I hadn't seen any of the season, so I didn't know that she had kind of gone through this journey and they had accepted her kind of kooky, out of the box, lovely, spectacular, outstanding drag. So once he said he loved it, I was like, okay. Because I guess I really wanted her to do so well, and I didn't want to mess that up. So,
yeah, that's fair enough. I can totally understand, and I think you could tell that you were sort of slightly nervous, but you just really wanted to do well, and you were just having so much fun at the same time. Like, you were on the main stage, and you looked so giddy, and you were so excited. It was so funny and sweet.
Oh, that was just that. I'll remember that forever, because it kind of is like blurring. My memories are kind of blurring with the show. Because it's so cool, it kind of doesn't feel real sometimes, but the being on the main stage is the one kind of like solid memory, like, no, I was there. That's me. That's so cool. I still like pinch me. Bethany and I'm closest to Bethany because we got out of the car at the same time, so we were kind of immediately kind of like, you're my friend. But we, even at DragCon, when anyone would recognize us, we would like be like, this is so pinch, this is so cool.
Yeah, it's definitely an amazing feeling. It's interesting, I guess, to hear that you almost like your memories are blurring into the show, because that's kind of how I think it would be as well. Because if you're a big fan of the show and then you get to be on it, it's kind of life imitating art.
You're so used to watching it that
it's kind of mixes in. I can see that. And so, what did it feel like then meeting RuPaul? Because on the show there was that moment where he's doing the walkthrough in the workroom, and he comes over and you sort of say, oh my God, I'm so like basically flustered to meet you and everything. And how did that feel to actually have RuPaul standing there talking to you and saying your name?
It felt like that. He is very professional. The thing that shocked me the most is when they do the walkthroughs, everybody has to listen. You have to be quiet. So we were actually the last group, and so I had kind of gotten like, okay, it's like I had kind of like seen how nice he was to everybody else, so I was like, okay, he's coming over here. Don't be weird. And he was, and obviously it's edited, but every question he asked, that you see him ask all the different girls, he asked all those questions to every single one of us. So we got to talk to him significantly longer, and part of me wishes I had that footage, because I remember some of the questions he asked me that he didn't ask other people, and I'm like, oh, brain, remember, why won't you remember? But I was like one of the only ones who had been put in drag before. Well, drag is a relative term, but my friend Natalie, the makeup artist, had put me in a lot of different looks, and I consider being turned into Violet Chachki being put into drag. So we had talked about that, and Was kind of hoping that would make it on because I was like trying to plug her a little bit. Because I'm pretty sure she helped her and Brian. I like will be indebted until I die for helping me get on the show. So
yeah, it's an amazing opportunity, and I think I'm sure. Well, I know I am, but I'm sure people watching who are also fans are so jealous and really envious and wish we, could do it. It's like the most amazing thing if you're a fan of the show to be on.
I'm still kind of. Oh, also the other coolest thing that happened was Wintergreen from season. They're all blurring together now with Peppermint. Her makeover. He was my cameraman, and at one point I was like waving at him, and he kind of thought it was funny that I knew who he was, and I was like, "Can I have a hug?" And he came over and gave me a hug, and then he was my cameraman for the whole thing. So I'm still kind of hoping, based on fan reactions, that they do a former top makeover, oh, these people have already been made over before, now it's your turn. And I'm hoping that they would invite me and Miss Cookie and Wintergreen all back. That would be my ultimate dream, but I don't know if that will. They seem to have kind of stopped doing makeover challenge, so I'm kind of worried that it won't happen. But I'm just gonna put it out in the universe and hope.
All you could do is hope and see if it happens. It would be that would be so cool because it'd be almost like almost like an all-stars but for guest stars kind of thing, because there were so many people that were, like you said, Wintergreen, Miss Cookie and stuff. And for example, I don't know if you know this, but in the UK at least, on Netflix, the thumbnail for your episode is you.
What?
So the thumbnail.
That's so cool.
The thumbnail, because I don't think it's on Netflix in the US, but in the UK it is. We have pretty much all the seasons. The thumbnail is you and you're getting your makeup done with the yellow face, and you can see Crystal's hand doing your makeup, sort of coming from the side. That's you.
Oh my god, that's so cool!
Because I was recently I watched the episode earlier the other day, and I was like, oh yeah, you were always the thumbnail, and you still are, because I think you were the most dramatic makeover, and that's why I remembered. And I was like, oh yeah, that's Grace.
That is so cool. The other thing that I still can't believe is there is another YouTube channel I really like called Miss Mojo, and they do a lot of top 10 RuPaul videos, and I've been watching that channel forever, and watched Mojo before that, and they came out with the top 10 makeovers, and of course I get a text from Brian, and he's like, Grace, you're number 9, and I'm like, oh my god, I want to miss this. Again, it's all just the coolest thing ever.
I can imagine it is really bizarre when you start meeting people from the show or he's talking to them. I know I've had that when I've done interviews with people on my channel. It's weird. So you see them on TV and then you sort of start to get a little bit involved. It's weird, but it's fun.
Oh, it's so fun. It's again, coolest thing I've ever done. All downhill from here.
Well, let's hope not. But it certainly was very cool. One of the things you mentioned on the show, sort of one of your big storylines, I guess, was obviously you talked about your anxiety, and Crystal kind of was the same. And you did your cool Wonder Woman pose, which you say you use to sort of, relax yourself. Is that something that you still do? And where did you sort of learn that?
So the big kind of misinterpretation is that I'm a teacher. I'm actually not a teacher. I am a physical therapist who works in schools. So I work with kids from 3 to 22. So it's way too long to explain. So I'm perfectly happy with people thinking I was a teacher. I actually used to be a teacher. I was a high school teacher, and then went back to school to become a physiotherapist. But the main age group that I work with is preschool and kindergarten. Again, way too long to explain on the show, but when I was in PT school, we learned about that pose and how there's actually scientific research that it's meant to, calm you down, and it just that position physiologically makes you take deeper breaths, which naturally calms you down. And I'm a giant, like I'm a drag nerd, but I'm also a huge superhero nerd. I grew up having my dad read me the Spider-Man comics out of the, Sunday paper. And, of course, I've seen every, it's getting tiresome seeing everything in the MCU catalog, but I have. And so tying it in with like a superhero, Wonder Woman, because obviously I want to be a superhero, hence my purple hair. And so I still use it because whenever you work with kids, the kids are lovely, but the parents can be interesting is the most polite way I can put it. And so I do work in an area of Los Angeles where a lot of people work in the industry, and so that can come with lawyers and intense meetings. So anytime I'm nervous, I break out the Wonder Woman superhero pose. Probably can't call it Wonder Woman pose because it's probably trademarked, but yeah, I learned it in PT school and would do it before all of my tests and things, and still do it to this day because it helps. And I did it right before I went on the main stage.
It's really cool. And I remember, I think I had heard of it before, but I'd never done it. But I remember watching the episode being like, I'm going to try that. I'm going to stand up and do the one, or the superhero pose, shall we say, not trademarked.
Yeah, I want DC coming after you.
No, I don't want to get demonetized. So let's call it a superhero pose. But that was so cool, and I think it was and I'm sure everyone at home also felt that way as well. And it was so lovely to see you and Crystal have that bond and see you kind of actually overcome your nervousness and just have fun on the show and let loose and get painted yellow and be Bert and Ernie on the stage. It was so funny.
Fun story. What you saw was actually the second time we did it. Because I did it off camera because she was nervous. And so I was like, oh, this is what I do. And one of the producers who was floating around was like, we need to do that. We need to do that again. Please do that again. So that was another one where that was the second time we had that conversation, which makes me look at reality TV a whole new way.
Yeah, that was actually kind of going to be one of my questions was, did being on the show change your perception of the show in any way?
A little bit. There were definitely questions that either we asked or that the queens asked that the producers were definitely the ones who had initiated that question. And so there are times on the show where it's like, and I'm sure you've picked up on it, where it's like, that seems like a kind of out of left, like, that wasn't part of the natural conversation. Where did that question come from? And usually those are ones that the producers have like, oh, we need to talk about this. And the one that I kept messing up was when I'm in the makeup chair asking Crystal about her Get Dusted shows in Missouri. I kept messing up because they wanted me to use the word fans, like, what are your fans like in your hometown? And I kept being like, so tell me about your drag shows, or tell me about your hometown queen. Like, I just kept, and the producer was kind of like, that was great, but can you please use the word? And then I finally got it, and they didn't even use it. So I think they got, the question ended up being what got you started in drag or something like that. So.
Yeah, I guess being on any kind of TV show, when you see behind the scenes a little bit, you realise that it's not necessarily scripted, but it's definitely kind of massaged slightly, or kind of they give you a direction, because obviously they want to talk about something, and unfortunately real life doesn't just happen perfectly. Obviously you do need some kind of production to make it snappy. Otherwise it would be boring, because otherwise you may as well just sort of not watch it, So I think that's fair. I think that's kind of expected, but it's interesting, I guess, as long as it didn't make a negative impact on your impression of the show.
Oh, no. Well, it definitely, obviously the villain edit is a real thing. So it definitely had me kind of watching with a kinder eye for previous seasons I had previously watched and going forward. And specifically, like, I know Diabetti kind of got the more of the villain edit, but I was already completely biased towards Diabetti for season 14. So I was like, I don't think she's being that mean. yeah, I obviously am very biased towards any of the Get Dusted girls. So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I liked Crystal, and I also love Daya as well. Like, I think yeah, definitely. I think the villain edit is definitely a thing, and without that, the season would be a bit boring if there isn't like not just a villain, but just someone who's going to kind of be a little bit kind of cause a bit of friction, or not even friction, but just some kind of discussion. If everyone just gets on all the time, it's not really that interesting.
No.
You need something.
Why would you have Untucked? Untucked would be pointless.
Exactly. One of the questions I always wanted to ask, because we obviously talked about the makeover, and obviously at first you were a bit surprised by how dramatic it was, and then it was, I guess, a bit kind of more on the campy side rather than the glamorous side, although it still was glamorous, but kind of not traditionally glamorous. What was it like actually having that much makeup on you, and at what point did you kind of, I assume as soon as the yellow paint came out you kind of knew, but at what point did you sort of start to think, oh, this is going to be really out of left field?
Well, I actually was a dancer growing up, so stage makeup is very, very similar to that. I'm sorry, Glenn, go away. Thank you. And so I was trying to like pretend I knew what he was doing while painting my face. My favorite thing was that I finally saw the glue sticks come out, and I was like, oh my God, it's happening. Excuse me. And it really wasn't until I saw it that because like, again, I hadn't seen anything Crystal's done, so I had no concept of what her lips look like or her eyes look like. The coolest thing was how actually low and high the fake eyelashes were. Like, they weren't on my actual like eyelids, because like it just wouldn't have worked. And so that was great. And when I turned around, I was like, oh, that's a lot of yellow. Okay. And like, we put on the wig, and we were actually one of the first ones done, which was great for me because I got to just stare at people and watch them work their magic on the other girls and turn themselves into the beautiful creatures that they are. But the big thing is they didn't want to catch me on camera. So I had to kind of watch from like different points in the room. Like, I couldn't just be like sitting there like watching them because they wanted to wait until I came out on stage to kind of show what my transformation had. Like, they all did our first look, like turn us around. And I was like, oh, because part of me really wanted Bethany kind of, Jazz Essence Hall kind of makeover. But I again was like, no, you've always liked the artsy queens. This is an artsy makeover. You need to get it together. And also, my makeup friend had just done some super glamorous work on me. So I was like, you get made over as a glamazon every day. Like, very rarely do you get to be turned into a Muppet. So this is perfect. And it wasn't until I had like the whole outfit on, and it was just like, and then seeing her all done, which there's one thing that still bothers me that no one else will notice. The back of my neck is not yellow. And I specifically saw her getting ready and was like, no, the back of your neck isn't orange. We have to make sure you're completely orange. And then I saw when I turn around and walk away, I'm like, back of my neck's not yellow. And no one else will notice except for me.
I was going to say, I definitely did not notice that. Maybe if we sort of like, freeze frame and zoom in on it, maybe we'll notice. But I definitely didn't notice that. But I mean, great that you have such an eye for detail.
That Crystal and I had that in well, and then I was like worried because I was like, Drag Race fan base is detail oriented. So like, we would take stuff, we like had lunch halfway through the judging, and so we kind of took some of this. I took out a lot of the bracelets off and the gloves, and I was like, I have to put them back in the right order. I don't want any drag fans clocking me for not putting back in the right order. But again, no one noticed but me. But the bracelets were on in the correct order every time.
Yeah, definitely. I guess you don't even really think about stuff like that, but when you actually are there on TV, those are the kind of things that some people might notice. But
there's also one time you can see I'm not wearing my shoes. So like when they go across and do the interviews, once you're done, they're like, okay, you can take, because I was one of the few girls, Tiffany was the other one, who had a lot of experience walking in heels, and I've stood in heels, and heels are my friend. because I used to be a dancer, so dancing on point, my toes don't have a lot of feet left in them. But standing for that, the judges panel takes so long that standing there, they do start to be like, hey, we're kind of tired. So once you were done with your interview, you got to take off your shoes. And there's a moment where they pull back from, I think Sherry Pie's interview, where you can see that I'm not wearing my pink stilettos, which Crystal tried to put me in matte white ones, and I was like, but those ones are sparkly. I want the sparkly ones. So she was able to be convinced away very easily to the pink sparkly shoes. So.
Yeah, I definitely loved the pink sparkly shoes, but well, that definitely will have to look out for that little detail of not having the shoes on. But no, again, I didn't notice that as the casual viewer, but I'm sure some people maybe did. But who cares? We all just enjoyed you. And you were just so fun and so sort of like warm, and you had such a smile on your face the whole time. You could tell you were just like, they say, like a kid in a candy store. Like you were just living your fantasy. It was amazing.
Yeah. Thank you.
And what did it feel like being in drag? Like, what did you feel it changed your personality and everything?
The big thing, because I've dressed up a lot in costumes before, but just being on the show, in drag on the show, was just like, they picked me. They wanted me here. They Crystal's trusting me with this look to like help her win. Like that was almost more of the confidence builder. And there was one moment where I was like, can't mess this up. And it was like, no, I am here. I am yellow. I'm going to do this. And so being yellow was very helpful, because it kind of allowed for just kind of, anything goes when you're yellow.
Yeah, I guess it kind of gives it made you different. You were the only one that kind of did, you two were the only ones that did that kind of really out of left field, completely different, almost like kind of cartoony style. Mm-hmm. And I thought that definitely helped make you stand out. But also, I think Crystal was already a lovable character, if you like, from the show. And then you came in and you almost just seemed like a biological sister. You were so similar. And I think that's why people loved you both, because you both just seemed so genuine and so warm, and you have this kind of slightly kooky edge to you. And then obviously dressing as a yellow Muppet Ernie, Bert and Ernie, that just helps it.
Thank you. That's just the sweetest thing ever.
No, I mean, it was such a lovely moment. I'm sure everyone at home felt the same, and that the fact that you were in the yellow helped as well to differentiate you. And that's probably why you're the Netflix thumbnail.
I still can't get over that. That's it. I keep this list of nice things people, like when I'm having a really bad day, I have this list on my phone of really nice things people have said, and this is 100% going on that list.
I'll send you. I'll put the screenshot up, but I'll send it to you as well.
Yes, please. That would be awesome. Thank you.
And so. Obviously, you then got the judges' critiques. Did you feel as though, obviously you said you were slightly nervous at the beginning that they might not like it because it was so out of left field, but then obviously you realised that they did like it. When you then go away while they're doing the deliberations, did you think that you might be in the top or safe or potentially, I assume not bottom, but how are you thinking about it?
Oh, I was like, I might win. They might win. Crystal might win. And of course, because I've seen the show, I knew that the partner, like the queen obviously wins something, but the partner wins something. So I was like, oh my God. But then based on the critiques, like it was so close between, Jada and Crystal and, she who shall not be named and Gigi, that I was like, it could be any one of us, but really, Crystal could really win this. Like, this is so cool. Like, oh my God. And so if you watch me in Untucked, when they announce that she's safe, I kind of go, oh. And it looks like I'm relieved, but I'm actually disappointed because we didn't win. And then, of course, I'm thrilled for Jada and Bethany, but I was a little jealous, I'm not going to lie, just a little bit. But Bethany, of course, there are not enough words in the English language or any language to describe how much I love that woman. And how kind and generous and spectacular she is. But she used some of her gifts to get some of her Betsy Johnson gift cards to get the other superfans gifts. So she's just, I'm in love with her. So we joke all the time that I'm the Poison Ivy to her Harley Quinn.
Yes, I think she said that in an email to me when I mentioned that I was interviewing you. She said that exact line. So that's really sweet. And she seems lovely. I interviewed her and she's lovely. And she mentioned about using the Betsy Johnson to buy everyone else gifts. I mean, that's a lovely gesture. But yeah, I can definitely see why you expected to be in the top. I remember when I was watching it, I always thought that you would you and Crystal were definitely either going to win or would be the top two. And then when you weren't, I was a bit like, it could go either way. But I definitely thought that you two both sold it on the runway. It was so funny, so sweet, and it definitely was. It showed that you can do campy drag and it can still be elegant and elevated. That was the point, I think, was what I took away from it. I don't know if you felt the same way.
I just was like, I have to remember absolutely take it all in. Don't forget a single thing. And we had practiced. Luckily, we came up with the routine almost immediately. And even before I knew what we were going to look like, we were practicing, and we had it down, which usually calms my anxiety. Is it's like, no, we got it. We practiced. I must toot my own horn a little bit because Crystal had mentioned that we were married, and I was like, well, don't we need rings? And so she had used from her ball challenge you see my orange one, but she had a yellow one on because they were the opposite colors of who we were, and I still have it on my what I call my nerd shelf in my room. And that because we took all the stuff off to give back to the queens, and Crystal had said I could keep it, and they tried to take it, and I was like, no, that's fine, thank you. I was about ready to tackle the PA, being like, no, give me back my ring. This is mine. She said I could have it.
That's so sweet. And it's lovely you've kept a little memento from the show and sort of that memory. And so one of the really cool things that happened on the season 12 makeover was also you got to lip sync. What was that like? When did you find out that you were going to lip sync, and did you sort of have time to plan it?
We found out day one, after we had done the walkthroughs, and they gave us the lyrics in a little MP3 to listen to, and I was nervous, mainly because the big thing we were all nervous about is we didn't know if our lip syncs were going to affect the girls. We didn't know how that played in, and so none of us wanted to mess up the chances for our queens. But I went home and that night and took about an hour in the mirror and was like, okay, you need to have these words down, girl. You're lip syncing in front of RuPaul. You there's no watermelon. You got to know your words. And so I came up with the hair and the most, I wanted, a little choreographed routine, and we practiced, because my makeover was done really fast. So I had time to kind of practice in the outfit and make sure all my dance moves went with the outfit. So
I loved that everyone had a chance to shine, and because you did it in pairs, and I think it was obviously it didn't actually make a difference to the ranking. It was just for a bit of fun, and I thought that was really sweet that everyone seemed to have such fun, and you were really truly involved in the show. And I loved your lip sync was so funny, and you were really selling. And I loved the bit where they said, they said hair salon, and you sort of did this with your hair. It was so funny. And so obviously,
Crystal had let me know what the hair was going to look like, so I had that ready. I mean, you got to use everything you have. So
it was definitely. It definitely worked with your sort of troll doll hair. You've got to kind of mention it in the song. It's such a, that no one else really had that. So you've got to work it. And so what did you think of the edit of the show? When you, obviously, because you film it and then it doesn't come out on TV for quite a long time. When it then came out eventually, what did you think of the edit? Do you think it was sort of what you expected? Was it a lot different to how it actually happened, or?
I was very thankful because there were 2 times that I kind of rambled, because I ramble when I'm nervous. And they were so kind as to cut both of those rambling moments out. So I was like, whew, phew. But the thing that I think that was the most shocking to me was just how much wasn't in there. Like, I remember all the stuff that happened, and it was lovely getting to hear all the queens, the talking heads, like, comment on everything. But just so many conversations that we had, again, multiple times, so many like interactions that we had just weren't, they have a limited amount of time. So I think the most surprising thing was just how much wasn't in there. I mean, nothing salacious or scandalous or anything like that, but just, how much they have to take 2 days of filming and condense it into 45 to 60 minutes. So it makes sense. It's same thing like when you read a book, it's like they cut out so much, but it's like you only have 2 hours. You can't put the whole book on screen. So it made sense, but that's also why I feel like my memory is blurring with the show, because that's obviously like I can rewatch it and those memories get like reinforced, and then the other ones I'm like, no, hold on to them, don't slip away.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I can totally see that. It's sort of what we see are like the official on the show, and then your own personal memories. That must be nice to have those memories, but it's kind of difficult to remember everything. Hello, Kat. Glen Coco. So yeah, speaking of, obviously we talked about, you said there's quite a lot was cut out. The name of my channel is Drag Tea Served. So I was wondering if you could serve us some drag tea and tell us about a moment or something that happened that didn't get shown, or maybe happened backstage that didn't get filmed, that would be interesting.
Well, one big one, which I hope doesn't get me in trouble, is they had done the reading challenge. That was supposed to be the mini challenge before the maxi challenge, but they all were so terrible at it that they just decided to, because we didn't show up until about 10 or so in the morning, 10, 11. And so they had plenty of time to do other stuff, and they did the reading challenge, and apparently everyone was so bad at it. They're like, so that's why Jada ended up getting to pick everybody, is because they had nixed the mini challenge. And then the other one, which is my favorite memory that I will remember forever and ever and ever, is after filming was done, we were, on day one, we were kind of like cleaning up, and kind of, Jada was still working on Bethany's dress, and we were all kind of practicing, but we had an absolute walk-off in the workroom with the queen. All the queens were walking in their heels. All of us were walking. They were playing music. We finally had to steal Jada away from making her dress. And like, that was my absolute favorite moment of the whole thing, was getting to do this walk off with the queens. But other than that, everyone was as nice as they seem in on the show. No one was mean or catty or, it just was an all over lovely, lovely, lovely experience that I, again, still, even when sometimes when I show people my episode, I'm like, oh my God, that's me. What am I doing there? So it's still surreal. I don't think it will ever not be surreal. And the other slightly disappointing thing was our episode aired what should have been the Friday of DragCon. So we were all excited to, go to DragCon knowing we would have this experience, and then to have COVID be the worst. So it's, Bethany and I were talking at DragCon about, we got recognized. It was gorgeous. We met the most lovely people, so many hugs. Can't wait till next year. But I don't know if I could have handled what it would have been like if we had gone the week our episode aired. That would have, I don't know if I could have handled that. So
yeah, I think definitely COVID did a number on everyone, and it was definitely, you could tell for the queens, because they had to do the finale basically in their living rooms, like on Zoom. Yeah. So I mean, which they still did an amazing job. I still can't how they managed to do that, and how like Crystal did all this. It was just I can't, like, mind blowing how she managed to do all of the stuff that she did. Yeah, so definitely it was lovely to hear that you had a positive experience. And I think that's why the episode was so successful and so loved. That's why I loved it. It's definitely one of my favourites because everyone seemed so joyous and just happy to be there. And I think that was what my main takeaway from the episode was. And there was no one went home either, which was also really
we
lovely.
We were all super nervous. We were all like, oh. And I'm a little bit disappointed because I don't know if Nicole told you or Tiffany will tell you, they were kept in drag and brought kind of back to do additional filming after the double Shantae. And so I, would love to know, what they talked about and all of that, but none of that. That was something that was disappointing watching Untucked, was that they didn't use any of that.
Yeah, I guess.
And also, Daisy Ridley came and gave us all hugs afterwards, because as she was leaving, I was like, I don't want to ask for a hug, but I feel like I don't want to be that weird person. And then she came backstage after we were all done and gave us all hugs, which was just lovely.
Yeah, and that must be amazing to meet someone who, cause obviously Star Wars and all that, that's just she's so, and she seems lovely. I've never met her obviously, but she seems lovely, and that must be so cool to actually meet a real celebrity, and I just can't imagine what that must be like.
Well, and then Bethany kind of jokes about this because I almost passed out, because when we were going into Untucked, I had asked the producer, because Crystal knew that Raven is one of my absolute favorite queens, and so when we were standing up there when we weren't filming, she kind of pointed her out, because she, does RuPaul's makeup. And when we were walking back to Untucked, I had asked one of the producers, I was like, is there any chance we can meet Raven, or she can wave or say hi? And so right after Daisy had left, Raven came up, and I was just like, oh, how am I still standing? This is amazing. And he was out of drag, so he was the kindest, and he was like, I'm so impressed that you were up for this. And because apparently when they did the makeover, all the way back in season 2, they weren't as thrilled with doing the makeovers. Or someone, I can't remember exactly who, but someone of that group was not as thrilled as we all were. So, and I was just like, Daisy Ridley just hugged me, and now I'm talking to Raven. It just was, again, still
That's so lovely that you got to actually, so you got to meet two people that were, especially Raven, who obviously from the show and you loved and everything, but it's so nice that you actually got to meet them and they had a real sort of connection. You managed to speak to them and you had this amazing experience. You went to be on your favorite TV show and you also got to meet two famous people that you also love. That's just an amazing experience.
Serge. I'll never forget getting to hug Serge. He gives the best hugs. Yeah. The only kind of disappointing thing is we never really got to meet the other judges. They were kind of behind, and RuPaul looks that it's not any filters. She looks that good. I was a little disappointed we didn't get to see her walk out in her. I don't know why I thought we would, but her walk out, and then we're on the stage at the end doing kind of the dancing, and Ross Matthews waved at me, and I thought that meant we were done, so I turned right smack into Crystal and realized, oh, we're not leaving. He was just waving at me. Oh,
that's so sweet.
That was another favorite memory.
Well, it sounds like you have some amazing memories, and I'm sure we are all so jealous that you got to be on, but obviously happy that you had an amazing experience. And I think that's why people obviously really loved you and felt sort of a connection to you watching you. Which leads me on to, I would love to go on to some subscriber questions, if I may.
Of course.
So I had lots of questions for you. The first question isn't technically a question. It says, no questions, but please tell her that she really encouraged me with her positive attitude. I love the fun she had with the queens, how she just rolled with it. That was amazing. And there were several comments like that, basically saying you were just so lovely and tell her that I love her. So, the first actual question was, Were you at all skeptical of your makeover look after looking around the room and seeing how Crystal took a complete left turn on the concept compared to the other queens? Did you at first wish that she had gone the direction of beauty rather than camp?
Definitely. I wasn't worried looking at the other ones. I thought everyone did spectacular. I was a little worried because obviously, like, She Who Shall Not Be Named and Janet, you know, like, were identical. I really wanted the judges to like it. And because I hadn't seen anything up to then, I was just like, God, I don't know who's up there, but please let them like it. Like, please. So I don't think I was skeptical, and I didn't want her to do anything that wasn't her. I just didn't want the judges to not like it because it was so out in left field. And now that I saw the season, I was like, oh, I had no reason to be worried. But I was just I loved it. Again, it took just a second to get used to seeing myself as yellow, but I loved it, and all the queens were commenting on how much they loved it, and I just was like, please don't hate it. Please don't hate it. And so when they said they loved it, I was like, okay, we're good. We're good. Everything's good.
You were good, and I think definitely, like I've said before, it was so cool that you two did something so different, and I'm sure that's why people remember you, because they're like, oh yeah, she's the yellow one. Like that, it was just like no one else was really like that. So you definitely came across as not only being sort of like warm and really up for it, but also just that it was really quirky and cool, but fashionable.
Funny story. My mom is also very anxious, and so they think I do weird things in general, but love me for it, like purple hair and tattoos and things like that, where they would never do it, but they fully obviously support me, and I've had them watch it. They're just not big fans of reality TV in general. They just want to like fast forward. Like I have them watch Project Runway, and they're like, yeah, get to the fashion. Let's see them all dressed up. Like we don't really need to watch the show. But my mom was so nervous for me because I had given them some hints of what was on it, and she was like, but I read some reviews before she actually saw the episode, because we're on the West Coast and it had premiered, you know, earlier on the East Coast. And she was like, the reviews were all lovely. And one of them called me feeling like a demonic Marge troll doll, but as a compliment. It was a compliment, not a bad thing. And I was like, I almost want to get that tattooed somewhere. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. So you kind of were like a Marge Simpson troll doll, like, but in a good way. Oh, of course. I will always take that as a compliment.
You know, definitely. And I said I loved the outfit. I thought it was so cool, and I thought you two were definitely an amazing pairing. Speaking of, you know, being an amazing pairing, several people have asked whether you've kept in touch with Crystal since the episode.
I have. We chat over Instagram mainly. And I send her my mom's Christmas cookies every year because, you know, like she makes a lot and she's very famous for them. And so we talk over Instagram, and I try to see anything she does in LA. She actually has just moved to LA. So I'm trying in a very as minimal of a stalker way as possible, trying to be like, hey, do you want to hang out? Most of, except for Janet, most of the fans have kept in touch with their queens. And what was delightful at DragCon is anytime we went to see any of the other queens that weren't ours, they were always just like so excited to see us. And we're like, oh, because we're always nervous that we're like bugging them. And so the fact that they were genuinely excited to see us as much as we were genuinely excited to see them, Crystal included, and Heidi and Gigi, we got to meet her whole family, which was hilarious. They are just lovely people.
Oh, that's so nice that you've kind of, I guess, made friends out of the show. And obviously you talked about how close you are, especially with Bethany and the others. But like you've also got this kind of community out of it as well. And you sort of like, and DragCon is like the ultimate gathering of that community.
Oh yes, it's glorious. I can't wait for next year. I finally understand. There's this lovely documentary that William Shatner did as a love letter to Star Trek conventions. It's not Trekkies Because that almost is like making fun of him a little bit. This one is legit a love letter from William Shatner. And they just talk about how it's like this community and they go every year really to see people they haven't seen in a long time. And I didn't quite understand that until I went to DragCon a couple weeks ago and was like, oh yeah, this is going on my calendar every year. So I can come see all these wonderful people that I've met and know and can't see otherwise. Because I'm an old lady. I love going to bed at 9. So the fact that like there are all these drag shows start at like 9 or 10. I'm like, but I'm so old. It's so late. You have to be up then? No. That's why I prefer drag brunches, because then it's like I can be awake and not up past my old lady bedtime.
No, it sounds lovely. I've never been to. I'd love to go to DragCon one day, but I can imagine it would be such like a lovely community and sort of feeling. And
if you ever make it over here, you have a place to stay.
Thank you. That's so sweet.
You're most welcome. Please come.
I would love
one
to.
Day, Bethany and I were trying to go to DragCon UK one time, so we'll keep you updated. Yeah,
dude. I mean, if I'm still here, you know, and I'm in, because it's happening next year in January, I'm going to try and go. So we'll see. I mean, I love the show, obviously, so it'd be lovely to go. One of the big things, I guess, on the show with Crystal is that RuPaul kept referring to the mullet, the El DeBarge mullet. So one of the subscribers said, "Did you understand the DeBarge reference when it was made?"
I'd heard that song, but I didn't know who sang it. So I was just as in the dark as Crystal was initially. So yes, but now I know. I'm very aware. I did my homework once I got home. So I knew it by day 2, just not day 1. So I didn't know the reference.
That's fair. I mean, I knew the song, but I didn't know because I was watching it at home, I could just Google it. But obviously, I guess Crystal didn't have that opportunity, so I imagine that Crystal just didn't really know who that was. That every single time RuPaul mentioned it.
Hey, you got to go with it. RuPaul definitely gets stuck on his the way he says Lawrence Chaney and Willow Pill. Like he definitely has his things he likes to repeat over and over again.
One of the other questions was, have you done drag since the show?
So the closest was when Crystal just told me that she had a present for me when I went to DragCon, and when she gave it to me, it was a dress, which her boyfriend was like, he was about to throw this away, and I stopped him and was like, you have to give it to Grace. And I was like, thank you. And he's also lovely. And so when I wore the dress, I tried my best to drag it. I'm just not very good because I work with kids. So makeup, I can do the look. We had to do our hair and makeup for the show. So that's kind of the look I can do. But when Bethany and I were at Nikki Doll's booth, and she challenged us that within a year, by the time next DragCon comes around, we have to have done something performance-y wise. And I'm just like, but Crystal has to do my makeup. I don't know how to do my makeup. Because part of me is kind of like, well, who really wants to see me? No one really wants to see me. I don't want to do it. Well, who wants to see me? So I take that challenge seriously. I hadn't figured out what to do. But when I went to DragCon, I wore the dress. I wore a blue. I didn't have a turquoise belt, but I had a blue belt, and I put my hair up and painted my eyes really yellow. So that's as close as I've done. But I need to do. It is on my challenge list, and I probably won't do it until right before the deadline because I'm a procrastinator. But hopefully I'll do something. Might just be on an Instagram reel because I'm still a little too with RuPaul, it's a whole production team. They make you up and they show you where to go. To do it by myself is very daunting. So, well,
I'm sure we'd all love to see more of you. I mean, you were just so lovely on the show, and I'm sure anything you want to do, we'll all be loving it because you're, Opal Methyd, and we all loved it.
Oh, thank you. It's very sweet and very encouraging.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I mean, it was lovely speaking to you, and you were so lovely on the show and everything. And it was just so lovely to get to meet you and see the thumbnail from Netflix in person.
That's still the coolest thing ever. After being on the show, coolest thing ever after being on the show.
Thank you so much for being on my channel and taking the time for this interview. I'm sure everyone's loved hearing all your responses for the questions and hearing more about your time. If people want to sort of like follow you and find out a bit more about you, do you have social media? Where would people find you?
So I'm rarely on Twitter, so I'm glad that I checked it to see your message. So the best place is Instagram. I do have a private account, but that's just because from some of the modeling I did for my makeup friend, who everyone should follow. It's NFX Makeup. I started getting a lot of creepy people who were starting to follow me, so I put it on private. And if I see it's not a creepy guy, I obviously accept them, especially if I can tell that they're a drag fan immediately. I'm like, yes. But it's Gracie Lou 1205. So it's GRACIELOU 1205, which was one of the rambling things I did because from Miss Congeniality, I got the name Gracie Lou and rambled about that. And it was just, RuPaul kind of looked at me like, okay. And so I'm very thankful that they cut out that ramble because I was like, oh, that's mortifying. So I'm very glad they cut out that ramble. But yes.
Thank you so much. I'll put all your handles and everything on the screen. Hopefully you won't get any creepy people. You'll just get lovely drag fans that want to sort of... Grace, thank you so much for being on my channel. It's been so lovely to speak to you. So I wish you all the best, and I hope we do get to see you, whether it's at DragCon or whether it's on a show or an Instagram reel, whatever it is. We want to see even more of your amazing Opal Methydness.
Oh, thank you. Also, you're adorable. So if you just want to hang out and chat over Zoom, I'm totally fine to do that.
Thank you. That's so sweet of you. Yeah, I definitely, you came across as being that kind of warm, bubbly person on camera, and that's exactly who you are. So it's always nice to sort of
thank you.
Meet people that are as genuine as you think they are. Thank you so much for being on my channel, Grace. And I hope we do get to see more of you at some point in whatever form it is.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sweet. Bye. Bye.